not a lot of people understand the mechanics, like the real DNA of what goes on behind the scenes of a publicly traded company on certain areas, annual meetings, proxies, things like that. Can you give us a high-level overview of basically what the company is and what you guys do?
Laurel is a proxy solicitor, which at the heart of it is we assist publicly traded companies and to a certain extent private companies in soliciting votes from their stakeholders, shareholders, investors, for an annual meeting, a special meeting to approve a merger, in SPACs, to get the SPAC through their special meeting, their business combination, or their extension meeting. Our biggest competitor is not another proxy solicitor. Our biggest competitor is Apathy. You're not doing anybody a favor, including yourself, if you don't vote. So vote. Nobody ever died from a lack of quorum. It's about being prepared, being prepared. Our tagline is knowledge is everything. We truly believe that.
Good afternoon and welcome to the podcast. So, as many of you know, we work and talk about public companies, IPOs, SPACs, and very often we have investment bankers on the program, we have CEOs, but at the end of the day, not a lot of people understand the mechanics, like the real DNA of what goes on behind the scenes of a publicly traded company on certain areas, annual meetings, proxies, things like that. So I'm super excited to learn about some of it because it impacts every part of the process of being a publicly traded company. So and also he's a great guy and a friend. And so with that intro, Anthony, by the way, Anthony Vitellozzi is the executive vice president of Laurel Hill. And very often people may be shareholders, maybe on the phone with us at VStock, and they'll say, hey, can you guys help me with this? Do you guys do this? Do you guys do that? And the answer is no, but you got to call Laurel Hill. So welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Seth. Thanks for having me. And I'm happy to be here. I really am.
I know we've been trying to coordinate our schedules for quite some time. So I'm glad that we're able to connect today. I want to know so much. I want to know about Laurel Hill. I want to know about proxies. I want to know about you. But just to get things started, can you give us a high-level overview of basically what the company is and what you guys do?
Well, Laurel Hill is a proxy solicitor, which at the heart of it is we assist publicly traded companies and to a certain extent private companies in soliciting votes from their stakeholders, shareholders, investors, for an annual meeting, a special meeting to approve a merger, in SPACs, to get the SPAC through their special meeting, their business combination, or their extension meeting. We have our own in-house call center. We're located here on Long Island in Jericho, which is right next to Syosset. That's unique in that we're not using an offshore call center. We have our own locally sourced call center. And that's always been our claim to fame is the call campaigns. We're very, very good at getting that done. But what we've noticed, though, is that we're starting to move away from those large call campaigns and really focusing more on helping, if you will, helping our clients sleep at night the night before the annual meeting. And what I mean by that is we're starting to focus more on intelligence. Who's in our shareholder base? What do they want? What are their expectations? Do I have anything to be concerned about? How's my executive compensation versus my peers' executive compensation? Which is, say on pay is something that's been around for a while, but it's starting to gurgle to the surface now. And we're noticing a lot of confluence between the U.S. and Canada in different governance laws and things like that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Laurel Hill's been around for about 17 years. We are the number one solicitor in Canada. The field is a lot more crowded here in the U.S., but we focus on what we do, and we're privately owned. We're not part of a larger conglomerate, which also makes us unique in the field.
Well, it's interesting. You said a lot, and so hopefully we'll be able to peel that. No, it's great. We'll be able to peel that apart. But I'm always curious, and this is just a pet peeve of mine in terms of like public companies, how they pick their name, how they pick their symbol. Laurel Hill is a privately held company. Was there a Laurel Hill? What is Laurel Hill? Is it two partners? How'd they come up with the name? Do you know?
Well, the senior partner of Laurel Hill is a fellow named William Catacasinos. To the folks local to Long Island, they might remember him as the chairman of the board of the Long Island Lighting Company from years ago. And it's someone I've known since high school. There used to be a book series that's still around called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Your poor dad, nothing to do with money. Your poor dad was your dad, the fellow that taught you to be a person. Your rich dad was the guy that taught you about business. And Dr. C's always been my rich dad since I'm a kid.
That's great.
Very, very, very enormously successful person. Laurel Hill happened to be the name of the estate that he owned in Mill Neck on Long Island. And because it was, covered with laurel bushes. He's taken numerous, in particular, utilities private. And eventually he got involved in one of his sons, Billy, was with D.F. King years ago and was involved in Proxy solicitation, and they decided to open up their own company about 17 years ago.
I'm glad I asked. There's some history. There's some history in that.
There's a lot of history there, yeah.
And so speaking of history, let me ask you this. I mean, I know that when I was in high school, my parents wanted me to be a lawyer, which, I made them happy. I was for about a year or two. But I certainly didn't wake up when I was in high school say, hey, I want to be a transfer agent one day. How did you get into this world? What's your background? What's been your journey to get to where you are?
Well, there is no course in school for proxy solicitation, but there isn't, just like not for a transfer agent. But business acumen definitely helps. I grew up in the food business, in the restaurant business, ended up in food manufacturing, took a company out of bankruptcy, and dealing with the investors was very, very interesting to say the least. But again, I've known this family since I'm in high school. They were rebuilding. They asked me to get involved. I was a stockbroker for a while. That didn't prepare me for this, but it's interesting to see it from the other side. I really enjoy, I don't know if you can tell from my demeanor, I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy, understanding what people's needs are and, getting to the heart of the matter and understanding where we need to go, what we need to do to move the ship forward. They asked for some help. They were in the process of building up the company, and it was something different, a new challenge, really, a new challenge. The cool thing about proxy solicitation is the SEC is constantly changing the rules. They're constantly moving the goalpost, as you know,
Right.
through V-stock transfer. They're constantly moving the goalposts, so it's a never-ending story. So it keeps you on your toes.
That's definitely a component that most people on the legal compliance side of the industry have to deal with. What I'm curious about is, well, first of all, let me just take a second to describe where and when that proxy solicitation comes in. So meaning you are, or the company is, through various different methods, they've got to vote on something, right? Whether it's an annual meeting or a special meeting. And so they put that out to the shareholders. And, I'm probably oversimplifying it, but, not every time that shareholders get asked to vote on something, do they want to take the time or the effort to respond or to look into it. And so they just ignore it. Is it more so that the company has to engage you to bring this matter to the shareholders' attention, or is it to say, hey, this might be, you're not influencing which way they're voting.
No,
right?
actually, we're prohibited. We're prohibited from doing that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so your goal is to solicit their involvement, to get them to actually facilitate this. Now, at what point do the companies bring you in? Right? Is it once they've heard silence, it's like, we better do something about it? Or are people bringing you in right from the get-go saying, hey, we don't want to get to a point where we've got to chase shareholders to vote. Let's get Laurel Hill involved early on. What point do you come in at?
Great question. So the short answer is we're always brought in too late. Okay. The short answer. So our main task is engagement. To your point, we're prohibited from from influencing their vote in any way, shape, or form. All our calls, any solicitor, all our calls are recorded. We're able to take their vote over the phone, et cetera, et cetera. But what we facilitate is the outreach, letting people know what's going on, why this is happening, inbound, outbound phone calls, inbound, outbound documents, the proxy statement, et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, issuers usually wait till the last minute. They wait till they're going to file the proxy statement. The best way to get ahead of that is to get ahead of it and get us involved, any solicitor, whoever you're working with, get them involved as early as possible. Now, the main season is in the spring, okay, from like April to June. So now in the winter, when you're starting to formulate, what are we going to be putting on the agenda? What are our goals? Are we going to be doing any recapitalization? Are we concerned about executive compensation? Are we overboarded? Are any of our board members overboarded? Do we have the proper mix of diversity and gender, and et cetera, et cetera? All the different things that you need to look at. Get us involved now so we can give you some indication of any challenges you may have. We can look at the investors that are in your portfolio, both registered investors and institutional investors who carry a lot of clout, all right, and give you an idea of any challenges you may be facing and help you strategize on how to reach out to them year round to get them engaged, because at the time of the annual meeting, in particular the institutions, they're busy. They're reviewing hundreds, if not thousands, of proxy statements. They don't have time to talk to you. And that's not the time you want to go with your hat in your hand and try and have a conversation with them. You want to engage with them early. And those conversations are things that you can disclose in the proxy statement. That in turn is viewed as good governance. So the earlier the better. We promote good governance is year-round engagement. There's nothing wrong with quarterly outreach. Hey, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing. Do you have any questions? It may be a 5-minute conversation, and we can set it up for you.
That's really helpful. It sounds simple and obvious, but as we both know, that is not always the case when we're a public company, and especially, I would imagine the first year or two is that year of exploring how does this all work, right? So many of these companies that I know that we work with, the CEOs are first-time public company CEOs, and they need to, have to sort of take their training wheels off and figure out, okay, when's the annual meeting and how do they deal with all the timing, and the calendar is a very big issue. I'm curious, with somebody with your type of experience, what would you say is like the top or maybe one or two most misunderstood parts of this process?
First of all,
if you can sit down in the seat and say, listen, you might think this, but like, here's the one or two things you have to realize that you see time and time again, people don't.
First of all, don't take anything for granted. All right. Our biggest competitor is not another proxy solicitor. Our biggest competitor is Apathy. All right. Okay. On the part of the shareholders and on the part of the C-suite. So in particular, we have, Desiree Carlo. Desiree runs our SPAC division. When the company de-SPACs and is now, publicly traded, it's usually the surviving company are the folks that were with the private company. They don't really have the experience of all the nuances that come with being a public company. So they're not used to the different regulations and things that they need to do. So, really ask some questions, be open-minded. We've put together a little bit of a roadmap for them. And as you got, your team has a timeline of events that they need to be aware of. Ask questions, get involved, find out what's going on. The first thing you should do is find out what is expected of you. What are the regulations? Get good outside counsel. Call up V-Stock Transfer and make sure you have a good transfer agent behind you.
Thanks. I'll take care of you later.
Yeah. No, keep it fair. But in all seriousness, those first few steps are critical because you're building a sound foundation to build up afterwards. If you're faltering at first, you're going to spend the next couple of years faltering, and it's really hard to backtrack and get started all over again. All right. That's the thing that you got to be worried about. All right.
And I'm curious if you can share with us, I've got my pocket full of stories of crazy situations of, from CEOs to shareholders to everything in between when companies are going public. I always joke there's this one time the shareholder called us up and the stock went down like day 2 of the IPO. And the guy's like, can I get my money back? And I was like, this is not Walmart. Like you
Right.
don't present me with a receipt, then I refund your shares. Um, are there any like crazy stories that you are able to share with us? Doesn't have to be naming names, just whether it's proxy fights or different scenarios that you've seen played out. Anything wild and crazy from over the years?
Well, we did have one. We did have one. Is actually a retailer of cannabis out in the well, I won't say where it is because then you'll know who it is.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, but there were two new co-CEOs who were absolutely incredulous that they couldn't use the company checkbook to pay for their car services, to pay for their Learjet, and within 6-8 months, it turned into quite the proxy fight. And they were, I mean, in all seriousness, they were like, "I thought that's what we got involved with this company for," and it was a hard education for them. It really was. It
I
really
can
was. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. We've had
imagine.
a lot of challenges with disgruntled shareholders. Okay, we've had some folks who, the stock went from 10 to your point. This went from 10 to 50 cents, and I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to vote. I don't want to vote. I'm mad at them. Well, understand, if they're not NASDAQ compliance, they're going to shut down. They're going to get delisted, and now you're really screwed. So, you need to at least vote, even if it's no. So
That's an interesting perspective, right? They're
yeah,
hurting
they need to.
themselves by not doing it. Yeah.
You're screwing yourself because you need to vote. So at least they achieve quorum and they stay listed. You're not doing them a favor by not voting. You are hurting them by voting no, but you're not doing anybody a favor, including yourself, if you don't vote. So vote.
That's interesting. That's
Vote.
very interesting.
And
I think that something that we as a transfer agent are very cognizant of is some of the changes in technology. Of course, can't have a conversation in today's day and age without talking about AI. But just in general, have you seen any significant changes that impact your business over the last 5 years?
I'm sorry, in AI using
Just in AI and technology, in the way that communication to shareholders is impacted. Anything that's changed, or you guys, which is not a bad thing, you've been doing the same thing for year after year, decade after decade, which is also fantastic.
Well, I'll give you, for instance, what's changed is that the dynamics of the investors have changed. They're younger, they're more, what's the word I'm looking for? There's more of a knee-jerk reaction. The days of Warren Buffett, I'm not going to say are over. There's still
Right.
calm investors out there, but they're very reactive. You remember GameStop and that whole debacle.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So there's most of the investors out there look like my 25-year-old son. Okay.
Right.
All right. Wakes up in the morning, does this. By the afternoon, changed his mind. So say technology, stuff like that. There's a lot of automation to this. There's a lot of emotion involved in what's going on, and you need to be creative on how you reach out to these people. All those folks with 1 or 2 shares can really make your day miserable. They really can.
I always say,
yeah,
those
I'm
guys,
preaching to the choir.
right. Like those guys that have 2 shares, and they're like giving the CEO who's running a $100 million company, they're giving him advice. These guys have 2 shares. They're sitting in their pajamas in their basement, and
Right.
they're shareholders.
And mom's making the oatmeal upstairs, right?
Exactly, because they live in their parents' house, of course.
Right.
No, nothing, but that is an element to deal with. And you raise a good point, meaning since the whole GameStop thing, the retail end of things has grown. Like we've had some companies where they had 23,000 small mom and pop investors, and we have to contend with educating them, right? Have you found that the amount of calls that you have to make per issuer has jumped tremendously since
So
retail?
it has. So what we do when we work with an issuer, we focus on the noble list, non-objecting beneficial owner. For those of you not familiar with the term, and what we do is we stratify that list. So we'll focus on whatever 5,000 shares and above, 1,500 shares and above, and we get a bigger bang for the buck. Meaning we can also contain the costs for the client. We don't have to. That's difficult now because it's spread so much wider now to get that impact. You have to spread the calls so much wider. So you have to be more creative. You have to use things like StockTwit. You have to use different message boards. You have to use LinkedIn. You have to use all different methods for reaching out to these folks. Different technologies, different ways of outreach. It's difficult. It can be very, very difficult, and you're not getting the bang for the buck that you used to get because the impact is diluted. It's very, very diluted.
And along those lines, can you educate us and many CEOs, and they don't understand the mechanics of this, which is not a bad thing. It's just an entirely different world. So you've got some guy that has $10,000 worth of stock, and he just jumped onto Robinhood and got bought stock because he saw something on TV or a product that he liked. So just walk us through, how do you get to that Robinhood account owner? How does
Robinhood, if I believe, is through Say Technologies. Okay.
Okay.
You just like there's Broadridge, which is the Empire Death Star of the of the industry. Then there's Median. These are record keepers. They're that you would go through, and Say is also they're a challenge to deal with because they're relatively new and still shaking out the cobwebs. So you would get their list of non-objecting beneficial owners. Then we would run that list through our search engines to get contact information, email addresses, phone numbers, last known addresses, et cetera, et cetera. And then, as I said before, we would stratify the list and look for the best segments that we would go after and start calling, making sure they got their materials. They would get assigned a control number that we would then use to identify we are talking to Mrs. McGillicuddy. Mrs. McGillicuddy, IBM is having their meeting, as you may know, and you are entitled to vote, and we'd like to take your vote. These are the ballot items the proposals that need to be voted on. How do you vote? Yes or no? And we work with the issuer and their outside counsel to create a script that we have to adhere to. Again, okay. I can't reiterate this enough. We are not allowed to influence the vote at all. And the calls are recorded to make sure that we don't influence the vote.
I'm curious. One of the not to pivot, but it's a related category. Is the industry has become very hot with SPACs, right? And we had it a couple of years ago, then it died down. Now SPAC 2.0, 3.0 is extremely hot. We're happy to be involved. I think we did 2 SPACs this week. K2, ClearThink, shout out to them.
Yes.
How does your service come into play for the SPAC world?
Well, what Desiree does is she manages the SPAC transaction from start to finish. Once the SPAC is created, she would assist in managing the process through its life. Whatever the lifespan of that SPAC is.
But they bring you in when they find a target that they want to acquire.
Even before they find the target.
Even before
they find the target.
Really? Okay.
She works with outside counsel, as we all know. No offense to the attorneys, but outside counsel can be very expensive, charging by the hour. So Desiree interacts between the printer, the outside counsel, inside counsel, the executives at the company. When they do find a target, she works with the target as well, and she makes sure all the moving parts are working together. She works with the transfer agent, the custodial agent, whoever that may be. Sometimes our escrow service, Laurel has our own. We're an escrow manager here in the United States. We're actually, anecdotally, we're the largest escrow agent in Canada. Here in the United States, we're an escrow manager, a third party. Disinterested third party. We're not an escrow agent here in the States. And
can a company use you for escrow even if they don't necessarily have a need or engage you on the proxy side?
Of
They
course.
just have a
Of
transaction? Yeah,
course.
they could just
So
invoice.
yeah,
Okay.
we would act as the disinterested third party in making sure that everybody's getting paid in a timely fashion, and take care of all the legwork, all the paperwork, and everything else, and make sure everything is itemized and above board. Absolutely. So you don't have to worry about it. No inbound fees. No, that's another commercial. We'll do that. We'll do that another time. But yes, Desiree can make everything seamless for them, and keeping costs at a minimum. She does once the target is found, or if you need to do an extension meeting, she's the inspector of elections, et cetera, et cetera. She does all of that. She does all of that.
Got
She
it.
does the vote projection analysis for what may happen. She can do the NASDAQ. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry. She
She
can,
does it
the
all.
round lot analysis. I'm sorry, the
Yeah.
round lot
Okay.
analysis. Okay.
Okay.
She does all of that. She does all of that at a, much more reasonable, again, no offense to the attorneys, but at a much more reasonable. You'd be surprised how often she is educating some of the junior
You
attorneys
know
out
what,
there.
Anthony? I'm not surprised. You know why? Because the first time I met her, I was told, um, we don't have to name the name of the transfer agent, but she basically had like 20 years worth of stock transfer agent experience. And I was like, there's nowhere else that you could possibly learn the ins and outs of what you
Correct.
do. Like, yeah, you were a transfer agent. Now I understand why you're so educated. And
Right.
I find that my team often has to educate senior partners at law firms. That's not a bad
Hmm.
thing. I mean, we are in the weeds for a reason, and she does a great job of that.
Exactly. And to your
I
point from before, you don't go to school for this stuff. You go in, you make mistakes, and you learn from them.
Yeah,
You know.
100%.
You know.
I'm curious. You must have been exposed, and maybe it's not you, maybe it's members of your team, where situations get very tense, or there's a lot of pressure, right? I mean,
I
sometimes.
used to be 6'2" with blonde hair, just so you know.
Well, that explains it. But like seriously, how do you guys? Do you have any secret to the sauce of like how to maintain your calm and your cool? I mean, you're talking about millions, tens of millions, hundreds. Like, there's a lot on the line here. How do you deal with that stress,
You think I'm good?
both
I'm being
personally and
facetious.
professionally?
It's going to sound like I'm being facetious, but I'm not. I
Okay,
remind myself all the time that I'm not delivering body parts. Okay? Nobody ever died from a lack of quorum. All right?
right. A
It's
lack of
important.
quorum.
It's a
I think,
it's a
Anthony, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think I'm gonna buy you a T-shirt that says "Nobody ever died from a lack of quorum."
all right.
That's good. That's good
It's
line.
important. It's important to my clients, and hence it's important to me. I've had many nights where I'm up, in the middle of the night on the phone with somebody from Malaysia or Israel or
Right.
whatever, and we've had a lot of nail biters. But at the end of the day, me personally, and this is going to sound like a commercial, we have an extraordinary team here, especially now. We've really built out with Desiree. We just brought on board Jennifer Milev and Unclaimed Property. John DePinto and Raji. I can go on and on. Kelsey Sartella for our corporate advisory. You know a lot of the folks that we have here. I'm sleeping at night, and that's how you avoid the heartache. You
Mm,
surround yourself with talented people, and the old infantry adage: you lead, you follow, or you stay the hell out of the way. The trick
exactly.
is to know when to do what. So
Exactly.
that's how I sleep at night. I remind myself that at the end of the day, I'm doing the best I can, and it's the best I can do, and that's it. You
Well,
know.
listen, I want to be mindful of your time, so I want to wrap it up. I want to say, as a
Oh, I
follow up
could
to
talk to you all day. I could
no,
talk to you all day.
as a follow up to that, like, and I'm not blowing smoke at you. I mean, it comes across, at least I can speak for myself, as you are very much somebody who loves what you do and you're very passionate about it.
Very much
Um,
so.
and I think that comes across. And the CEOs, I think, will echo the sentiment that when you're dealing in the public markets, very often it feels very transactional, depending on who you're working with and what you're doing. But from all of our time working together, you really have a passion for it. There's authenticity, a sincerity to try to help these companies. So I think that's I just wanted to point that out.
Thank
Is
you.
there anything else about Laurel Hill that maybe we don't know, or a potential IPO SPAC or an existing public company should know about what you guys do?
Yes. As I said, we're privately owned, which means we're not beholden to anyone. The senior partner reminds me frequently that we're not a nonprofit. So, okay. But, we operate altruistically. We're not beholden to a larger entity, And in a nutshell, alluding to what we were just talking about, we've learned how to sleep at night. Let us show you how you can sleep at night. Okay?
That's a good
We can
tagline. I
teach
think we're
you.
coming out with a lot of T-shirts after this show. That's a great.
Yeah.
That's a great tagline.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
true.
we found, as to your point, the secret sauce. It's about being prepared, being prepared. Our tagline is knowledge is everything, and we truly believe that. Get educated, know what's going on, and don't get caught unawares. That's all.
Fantastic. Well, Anthony, thank you for joining us. If somebody
Thank you for
wants to
the
learn,
opportunity.
no, listen, it's a chilled conversation between friends. Tell me this: if somebody wants to learn more information about what you guys do, what you offer, or wants to work with you, what's the website that they can go to?
www.laurelhill.com. All right, or
Laurel.com.
call me 917-359-2986.
Look at that. We give you direct access on this
Oh
podcast.
yeah, I'm looking forward to
Straight to
talking
the
to you.
man himself. All right,
Absolutely,
awesome.
absolutely. Just don't
Awesome.
call me about my Ford Motor Company warranty, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you at the next conference, I hope.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.